Alrighty, so last but certainly not least, we are gonna do the season preview of Toronto FC. And bear in mind, I'm not doing this season preview last out of every team is because of the fact that I think Toronto FC could finish dead last. Though I think that in some way, I kind of think that that could be the case, and especially pretty much the general public in MLS think that this team is probably gonna win the wooden spoon again, considering that they were supposed to drop a nuke to this roster, which I think they kind of did that in some extent. I mean, they definitely got rid of some pieces that did not fit this team future. But at the same time, they've also didn't sign anyone this offseason. And normally when you don't sign anyone, that's not a great thing. But I think when you look at this Toronto FC side and considering that this team is clearly in the beginning stage of this deep rebuild and pretty much just trying to clean up the mess that the last regime left to this team, that has just kind of left this team with tons of dead weight that they need to get rid of. That's probably not a destination for any players to want to go. And this is where when they decided to hire John Herman last year. I mean, John Herman, he's done an incredible job, especially in the international game, especially with the Canadian national team, getting a team that was just kind of the minnows of CONCACAF to a teams that have now becoming one of the big players in the CONCACAF region, and even got them to a World Cup. But obviously, coaching in the international level is completely different in the club level, and he's gonna have to try to replicate that in the club level as well. Because, as I said, this team, there is a lot of mess that they need to clean up, and it might take more than just a season or two for them to get themselves even close to being a MLS playoff contender. Now, last season, again, it was an absolute disastrous season. I mean, both on and off the pitch. They finished with a 4-10-20 record and finished with just 22 points, easily the worst team in the league, and won the wooden spoon. Their last playoff appearance was all the way back in the COVID shortened season when they finished in second place. But even then, that was a really disappointing year because despite how well they finished in the East, they got bounced in the first round by an expansion team that is Nashville SC. And as a result, their last playoff round wins actually had to go all the way back to 2019 when they actually made it to MLS Cup that year and was kind of part of the final trilogy run that we see the Seattle Sounders versus Toronto FC, and a matchup that I'm pretty sure a lot of people are hating to see it happen again for a while. Back then, considering it basically happened almost every single season. And yeah, that was really the last great run, and that was kind of the almost the beginning of the end for this TFC team that it's hard to believe just a couple of years ago back between 2015 all the way to 2020 that this was supposed to be the class of the Eastern Conference, and how much they have just kind of fall apart in just a couple of years. Now, in terms of MLS Cup, at least they won an MLS Cup, doing the peak of their power all the way back in 2017. And in terms of the signings that made, again, they really didn't make any signing whatsoever. They only made two addition with Cassia Miola, and also they drafted Tyrese Spicer, who is the number one pick in this year's Super Draft, because we don't have an expansion deep this year. So whoever has the worst record in MLS last season actually do get the number one draft pick. Now, in terms of player that is no longer on this team, again, this is where I mentioned that some of these players that I don't think could fit the rebuild in the future are no longer on this team, and that at least they kind of got rid of some of the dead ways. Matt Hedges, of course, no longer with this team. He's now with Austin FC. Timu Antetokounmpo, Victor Vasquez, Thomas Romero, who went to NYCFC, Kosi Thompson, Jordan Peruzza, Christian Gutierrez, Amit Mabika, Michael Bradley, of course, hanging up his boots this season. CJ Sapon and Greg Richardson also no longer with this team. Now, looking at the preseason schedule, so they actually did win a game in the preseason. So yeah, I think that's already kind of a good thing for TFC, considering saying that a lot of people say that it doesn't matter if it's the regular season or preseason, they're gonna get absolutely smacked. But no, they actually got to a good start by winning 2-0 against Nashville, but that was part of a split squad kind of matchup. In the other split squad, they lost 1-0 to Nashville, and then on February 10th, they lost 4-2 to Columbus. And I put in an asterisk in terms of that, and that's not because of the fact that that was an asterisk in terms of how the resort would go. But I think Tom Boger kind of mentioned a very strange story. The fact that TFC they know that they're so bad, and especially facing against the defending MLS Cup champion, that they basically said that nope, we are not going to report exactly what the resort is for this preseason game. Like I don't think there's any team that have ever done that in a preseason game, and again, that just kind of shows you how bad things have gone to this team, and how it's going to take more than just John Herman trying to clean up the mess when you have a situation even like this where the team itself doesn't really want to share the result of a preseason game because they feel like they're going to get absolutely embarrassed by the defending MLS Cup champ. And even though they lost that game, it wasn't really by too much. I mean, 4-2 was the final score line, and that again that. This also kind of just showed you some of the amateur stuff that is still kind of been run in the core of this TFC team, where they do something that are just really stupid and something that should not be happening. And again, this is an example of, I mean, I know you're facing against the defending MLS Cup champion in a preseason match, but that doesn't mean you can just say, "Oh, we're not going to show the result. We're not even going to report it because we just want to keep it secret because we don't want anyone to know we're going to get absolutely get our ass kicked by the defending MLS Cup champion in a preseason game." But that being said, in the other matchup, they also drew 1-1 against RSL, and then in the final matchup, they're going to be playing against LAFC. I wonder whether or not they're going to not report that game result, considering they're facing against the team that was the other representative in the in MLS Cup and the team that won the Western Conference last year. But that being said, looking at their schedule in the first 10 games, well, yeah, it doesn't get easier for them to begin the season. They have to go on the road to play against FC Cincinnati and going on the road to play against New England. Now, obviously, I know with the way that Toronto is probably going to be very bad this season. A lot of people are going to say that TFC is going to be the whipping boys of the Eastern Conference. Everybody's going to say that it's going to be they're like the Santa Claus of the Eastern Conference. They're just going to give 3 points for free to everyone. But I think this is where a team's got to be careful. I mean, this is where I've said this before, where you cannot pick any team lightly in this league. There's a reason why in MLS, anything can happen on any given in day, and that on any given Saturday you can see a resort that is really surprising and one that no one saw coming. And we saw a couple of that last year too. I mean, Toronto, they actually won 3-1 against the Philadelphia Union last season, even though everybody thought that was not going to happen. So again, this is a team that teams should not treat this team lightly, and that I do think that heading into this season, as much as bad as last year was, I'm pretty sure they're going to be a little bit better this season. They're not going to go in a season where they only win four games, even though I think they're still going to be pretty bad in the East. And that again, my overall message is that teams should not take the TFC team lightly and think that it's just going to be automatic 3 points because it's a lowly basement dweller team in the Eastern Conference. But that being said, after the game where they go on the road to play against Cincinnati and New England to start the season, they return home by playing against Charlotte FC. Then they go on the road again to play against NYCFC before returning home to play Atlanta and Sporting KC. Then they go on the road to play in an all Canadian matchup against the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, that's kind of almost given. Where anytime when Montreal and Toronto play a Western Conference team, they know it's going to be against a Canadian team that is the Vancouver Whitecaps, because the league love to see those Canadian matchup, even if it's not in the same conference. But on April 13th, they go on the road to play against Charlotte, so they're going to be done with Charlotte very early. And the same goes for New England, too. They play at home against New England before going on the road to play against Orlando City. Now, in the post Leeds Cup, this is kind of where you would expect maybe Toronto is going to be out of it by then, but they still have to go on the road to play against Houston. Then they play at home and actually start a first of 3 games that's going to happen at BMO stadium, and I gotta say BMO Stadium because I want to confuse with that and LAFC Stadium, and also don't want to confuse in terms of the fact that BMO seems like they sponsor every single team in MLS, because now it seems like LAFC is gonna get a BMO jersey, although that feels kind of out of place to see a BMO jersey down in LA. Though I will also say that BMO has definitely been reaching in a further region than in the Canadian area. And I know this because I have seen some BMO ad on TV, and definitely more often than I expected. And that's kind of weird because I thought BMO was supposed to be a bank that is mostly based in the eastern part of Canada. But going back to this, and before we kind of get a little too sidetrack, They of course play, as I mentioned, DC, Austin, and Columbus doing those three-game home stretch at BMO Stadium before they go on the road to play against Colorado and Chicago before returning home in their last two games against the New York Red Bulls and against Inter Miami in a game that could be sold out depending on if Inter Miami is going to put their starters in. I mean, I'm assuming that they're probably gonna put their starter in that game mainly because they're still going to be fighting for playoff position. And also I think I've just realized this, but I think TFC is the only team to not play on decision day. Let me just double check to make sure that is true because I didn't see them I don't see them have like a date on October 19th is where the decision date is. So let me just double check, make sure if that is the case. Yeah, it is. So I've now found out who is the only team to not play on decision day. Obviously, that's going to be something we're going to see one more time this year until next season, where it's not going to be the case because we're going to have 30 team and even number of team. But I guess maybe I'm not surprised that TFC is being the team to be chosen as the only team to not play on decision day because again, everybody knows, and even the league itself know that they're probably going to be bad, and they're probably not going to be in any contention whatsoever by the time decision day has happened. But looking at the strength of this team, yeah, this is where I'm going to have to kind of nitpick because there's really not a lot of strength for this team. I mean, they have a lot of number 9 depth, and most importantly, the Italian stars are still here. So you notice on the out list, I didn't mention the name Federico Benedeschi or Lorenzo Insigne. That's because they're still here. And I am surprised the fact that they are still here. Though I think also not surprised that they are still here because, as much as I know there's been a lot of talks of one, if not both of those players are leaving, it seems like maybe teams are trying to target those players, especially in Europe, probably saw the fiasco that was going on in Toronto, and they basically want no part of that of their team. And this is the problem you're gonna get, especially with both of these players just having on and off the field fiasco where when you make that much of a scene, yeah, teams are going to see them as being diva and that they want no part of that in the locker room. And again, this off season, as much as I know, I've said before how they've been trying to get rid of one or if not both of their players off their roster. They kind of can't unless if they decided to transfer them to somewhere else because they're pretty much going to be contracted all the way to 2026. So yeah, they're gonna have to eventually settle their difference if they want to at least be a centerpiece of this team, at least maybe give a beacon of hope that this rebuild will start off well. But obviously, the weakness of this team is pretty much everywhere. I mean, again, when you look at this team, they're pretty much have so much question mark everywhere on the pitch, starting with a goalkeeping position. I mean, I'm assuming they're going to put Sean Johnson in there, even though Sean Johnson completely fell off the map ever since he joined Toronto FC. The backline is still an absolute mess. The midfield is also a bit of a mess and not a lot of depth as well. And then on the attacking core, I mean, there are some okay, kind of talent. Again, those two Italian players, they're going to be a centerpiece of this team. But how much is that going to be if they're actually going to settle their difference and also actually put in the work rate that has been clearly lacking from both of those players. But yeah, again, pretty much they have weakness all over. And again, this is where the expectation for this upcoming season for this team is clearly just trying to get rid of the dead way. I mean, this I know I usually don't want to say a team season is already lost before the season begin, but it kind of seems like it is already the case with this team. I mean, this is clearly a transitional year. This is clearly year one of maybe a couple for them to really clean up this mess to get themselves back to playoff contenders because again, the moves that they made and the mistake that they made the previous regime left has really kind of hamstring this team. And this is also where when I talk about how they didn't really made a lot of move in a good hindsight, it's actually a good thing, the fact that they didn't do so, because I think the new regime are clearly thinking the long-term solution. The old regime have been trying to do this kind of plug in and hope that it will fix the error because it's a big name player that hopefully will just plug in and fix the issue, and it just haven't done so. In fact, it has done the opposite. It has really hamstringed the team in the situation that they're in right now, where they're completely slam up against the cap, and they're just trying to get rid of as much dead weight and trying to get rid of as much dead weight contract that is on this team. But yeah, there's no doubt that there's going to be a cleanup that needs to be made. Though at the same time, I do still think that John Herman will basically tell this team that they're gonna have to play hard and maybe kind of surprise people, because again, we've seen it before where whenever a team coming into the season and they have no hope and not really too much expectation, and sometimes those are the most unpredictable team to do. I mean, who knows? Maybe this TFC team can surprisingly be a good team, and maybe those two Italian players settled their difference and started to really they click well on this team, and maybe this team will not actually finish dead last, as what everybody is pretty much dead on predicting them to finish in the Eastern Conference. But still, again, this is all about them shredding the dead weight. This is all about trying to clean up the mess that the old regime left. And then once that, of course, is due, they can maybe start thinking about making some move to start to begin the rebuild and maybe start to form a core, get themselves back to being a contender in the Eastern Conference. But there you have it. That is pretty much it looking at Toronto FC. And really, that's pretty much it in terms of doing season preview. I mean, it's hard to believe they've done 29 season preview in just less than 3 weeks. I really kind of hammer down all these season preview and trying to do as much as possible before the season begin, because at the time of this recording, we are only about 5 days away before the first game is going to happen between Inter Miami and RSL, and I'll still have to do my prediction video and also do the hot seat index and the first emotion index of the season for this upcoming year. But yeah, either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and also if you're a Toronto FC team or a Toronto FC fans, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, and the expectation is for this team heading into the season? I'm assuming it's probably going to be very low expectation with this team heading into this season. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.